Welcome back to another episode of Perma Power Talk. Today we are greeted by Jeff Winter, an industry leader and expert in what we now know as Industry 4.0, which is helping move the industry forward from a technology standpoint. But not only that, how you can incorporate it into your business to not only be more efficient, but be more productive as things develop and advance in technology. Jeff, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So kind of just to set like the groundwork and the lay of the land for the people, what is Industry 4.0 and what are the important things that people should have on their mind when they hear this term?
It's a great question, and I wish I had a simple answer for you. So the term Industry 4.0 was famously introduced in 2011 by Germany at the Hanover Messe. And since then, it's taken hold all around the world. Unfortunately, it's taken on different definitions around the world because Germany originally treated it as a vision of the future, of what manufacturing is looking like in the future. And it's supposed to be the nickname given to the fourth industrial revolution. But a lot of the rest of the world used it to describe the era that we're living in, the fourth industrial revolution. So your answer may be a vision of the future or maybe a description of the time that we're living in. What this means is every company needs to come up with their own definition to figure out how to take advantage of all the disruptive, cool new technologies out there to transform what they do, how they capture value, how they produce value, and how they work to thrive during this transformative time that we're living in right now.
Okay. So as we think of Industry 4.0 from a maintenance reliability standpoint, pretty much what that definition is going to outline is what their key objectives are or things that they want to achieve not only now, but into the future, leveraging these different platforms that are available.
It absolutely could be. So I actually started talking about a concept called Maintenance 4.0, which is the little spoof off of the 4.0 nomenclature to talk about what does maintenance look like in this era that we're living in right now, taking advantage of all these new technologies out there. And so I built this idea based off the same Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, first, second, third, fourth revolution to do how would I extrapolate that out to maintenance. So if we talk about like maintenance 1.0 kind of being the break fix era of just letting it ride until it breaks and then you fix it, all the way up to 4.0, which is more about leveraging technologies like artificial intelligence to do predictive and prescriptive maintenance. This is what the future of maintenance looks like, is the ability to leverage technologies to better predict what is going to happen and then prescribe what to do and then autonomously act against it. Now, that doesn't mean it's replacing all aspects of maintenance everywhere, but it is another tool in your toolbox for how you approach your maintenance programs to know, hey, we can just let it ride out until it breaks. We can do planned maintenance. We can do condition-based monitoring, or we could do predictive and preventative maintenance.
I feel like there could be a misconception when we're talking about AI and these different platforms that people think that those are going to replace their workers, that they're going to replace the things that they value now. What can you talk about with the conception that these powerhouse tools, we'll call them, like AI, integrate into these companies to make sure that their employees are safe, their workers are safe, to be able to not take their job, but how can they utilize it or think of it in a way that they could implement it to help them be more efficient, productive, and whatever that looks like?
So there is no doubt that AI is going to eliminate jobs and replace jobs. What people don't think about as much is the jobs it's going to create as a result of it. In fact, World Economic Forum came out with their future jobs report and talked about the millions of jobs that are going to be displaced by AI. What they also talk about is the millions of jobs that are going to be created as a result of AI. It will change most professions out there. Mm-hmm. There's a couple studies I've looked at, though, that talk about the outcome of AI, and it depends on if you're viewing it as a cost reduction or if you're viewing it as a productivity gain. And the companies that see the greatest value are the ones that view it as a way of increasing productivity, not as a way of cutting cost. If you think about it as cutting cost, you're looking at ways to use AI to automate jobs to replace people. But the companies that think of AI as how can I get more out of my people end up seeing bigger gains and benefits than the ones looking at to cut costs. And there will be a mix for companies. I mean, there will be some jobs that just are no longer needed because of it. But if you treat it as a tool to enhance and improve what people are able to do, your company will get far more value out of the use of AI. So that means you need to start training your people on how to be fluent with data, how to be literate in the use of AI so they know where and how to apply it to their job to be faster, more efficient, more effective, safer, or just all around better in what they do.
So you use the word data in there, and I think that, at least to me, from what I hear when I'm out talking to different people and having conversations, is the data is amazing. But what do we do with the data? How do we utilize the data? How do we leverage it? And so as they're getting new system and platforms, how can they take that data to then transform into their business to make decisions, to make things operate more smoothly? Because, for instance, we have a solution right now that has connectivity. And it's the first thing in the industry where they're able to see a plant at a full level at the points that we're able to service. But the people are like, okay, this is great at the moment, we see it, but now how do we use this and take it a step further to implement a strategy of what is happening at that? So whether that's the life of that part or that product, to be able to continue to make sure that their uptime is there so that way they continue to run.
So the first part I want to say is that data quality is very bad overall. So a lot of companies are drowning in data, which means just the sheer amount of the data. But the data is not usable by most companies. Poor data quality. Because to have good data that can be used most effectively, especially by artificial intelligence, it needs to be normalized and contextualized. Normalized could be something as simple as, well, this machine produces temperature in Fahrenheit and this one in Celsius. Something has to be able to normalize those. Contextualize means to make reference to that temperature being related to these particular processes or this particular order, so I know what that temperature means rather than just having a temperature by itself. Once you have data normalized and contextualized and properly indexed, you can make sense of it with AI to do analysis, to do predictions, or to even do autonomous control. So you have to kind of work up this data maturity curve in order to make sense of it. Like I said, most companies are drowning in data. So it's not about collecting more data, it's about making use of it. And I usually like to recommend people start with, what decisions do you wish that your company could make that you're not able to make if you had the right data at your fingertips? And what decisions would be impacted if you actually had that data available? From there, go make sure that you have that data. Chances are you already have that data, you just haven't contextualized it in a way to allow it to help you with your decision because it's all either distributed or not linked to the decision that you're trying to make. Sometimes you may need to collect new data, add new sensors, add new system that can generate the data that you're trying to produce, but companies aren't even aware of how much data they already have that they could be taking advantage of. But it all starts with, do you know what decisions you would change if you had the right data to help you?
Okay. So taking it, I guess, a step back a little bit and thinking of it from a maintenance reliability standpoint, what are some of the common misconceptions that you see in Industry 4.0 and people's thoughts around it?
The biggest thing I generally see is when people don't really understand what Industry 4.0 is in terms of the art of the possible, what could it be? And they start to focus on the individual technologies that are comprised in it. Artificial intelligence being the hottest topic right now. I would argue digital twins is the second hottest topic that are out there. And so there becomes an immediate fear of the particular technology. And the immediate fear by individuals is this will replace my job. As a company, the immediate fear is we're falling behind. It's just kind of a general blanket statement. So the misconception to maintenance is that people view it as this technology is going to replace the operators, replace the work that's done. I view it as especially artificial intelligence for maintenance, which is the biggest technology that's being used, that's driven by IoT and other things. But artificial intelligence is the big technology that's making a difference. Is you're going to be using it to augment the workers in what they're actually doing. And so the big shift, the big misconception is that people think this technology is going to replace the people, when in reality, it should be replacing intuition and gut-driven decisions or just schedule-based decisions with data-driven decisions. That's the shift that should be happening. So the digital transformation should be about the people and processes, not about the technology. Technology is the way to achieve it. It should be about the people and processes. And it's not an IT project. And when you start thinking about like that, you start to get people to think about how they can actually transform their work once they have that basic understanding of the technology and how it can help them have data-driven decisions.
Okay. And so from the transformation efforts that a company may have, what are some of those roadblocks that they see when they try to adapt into Industry 4.0?
By far, the biggest limitation and roadblock is cultural. It is people-driven. The technology is there, and it works. But there is so much resistance, intentional and unintentional, that doesn't allow this stuff to easily roll out and scale. I see a lot of times that a new platform was rolled out, a whole bunch of devices were installed, and the system was architecturally set up. The infrastructure was there, but people didn't change what they did. And if they don't change what they did, then transformation didn't occur. Transformation starts and ends with people. The technology is what makes this one digital transformation than any other transformation that's out there, but transformations occur all the time. They start and they end with people. So the biggest area of investment in your initiative should be in the culture to make sure they're ready to adapt to it, and the change management to help guide that process. And people way underestimate the amount of time and the amount of effort that is spent on the people rather than the technology. You talk to a lot of people responsible for digital transformation, they will easily say half of their time or more is spent on just communication and dealing with the people and explaining what and why and helping with the persuasion and the convincing to get them to want to do this rather than to naturally be fighting it or resisting it or coming up with reasons why it won't work. So that is by far the biggest roadblock. The second biggest roadblock, I would say, which is more easy to overcome, but is not having the data that you need, when you need it, where you need it, accessible by the systems. Now that one's a much easier one to fix because the technology's there, but they realize they don't have it in the way that they wanted, when they wanted, where they wanted. And so you got to make sure you have that so you can take advantage of the technologies that are out there.
Yeah, I think as you talked about like the misconceptions or getting people to buy into what the initiatives are, why you're incorporating the technology and how it's being implemented is extremely important because there is this, I don't know if it's a stereotype or the thought around the AIs and these bigger platforms in Industry 4.0, being able to understand like we're not implementing this to get rid of your role. We're not using this to get rid of anything. We're using it to not only enhance a company, but enhance individuals as well to make them more useful, more powerful in a way that is just advancing in this new modern world that we're living in.
But I would add, it's completely fine to say that we're using this technology to eliminate your task. That's very different, or to change or modify what your role is, because a lot of the technologies are most helpful for the most repetitive tasks that the people don't enjoy doing anyways. And that's very different to go, we're using technology to eliminate these three of your tasks, because what we'd rather you be doing is using your knowledge to do this, this, and this instead. So you're morphing, you're changing the role. And that's a different way of communicating the impact of the technology. But if you don't explain that, they're immediately going to think, if you're looking at this task, my job is being eliminated. That's very different than we're eliminating your particular task so that we can repurpose your knowledge and your skill more effectively over there.
That's powerful. So as Industry 4.0 technologies mature, where do you see the reliability and maintenance going within the next 5 to 10 years?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd say it'd be like three main things. So the first is really about moving from predictive maintenance to prescriptive and autonomous. The second, I would have to say, is about having reliability integrated across the entire value chain. And the third is really about the rise of the intelligent worker and the intelligent workforce. So let me kind of go into those and explain them. The first one, going from predictive to prescriptive and autonomous. So AI is going to move beyond detecting failures and moving to preventing them, and doing this by automatically scheduling, by prioritizing, and even by executing corrective actions on their own. So maintenance won't just be about data being data informed, it's going to be data driven. It's going to be self-optimizing, which means the humans are going to shift from not just fixing problems, but to also setting the rules, to validating actions, and to improving the algorithms that actually manage the work. The second is around having the reliability integrated across the value chain. I view it as maintenance today in a lot of places is kind of treated like a standalone department. It's kind of operating in a silo. But you have your maintenance software, your CMMS, you have your enterprise asset management software, your EAM, you have your manufacturing execution system, your MES software, you even have your quality systems that are out there, and they're going to be interconnected, and they're going to be interconnected through event streaming and digital twins. And therefore, every downtime event will actually automatically feed production. It's going to feed planning, and it's going to feed procurement decisions. You're going to be creating a closed loop where reliability directly drives throughput. It helps directly drive cost and sustainability performance. And the third is the rise of this intelligent worker, or the intelligent workforce. The tools are not going to be replacing people, but they will amplify them. Technicians are going to start to use AI copilots. They're going to use AR, augmented reality guided work instructions. They're going to use live asset intelligence layers. And the most valuable skill will shift from wrench turning into systems thinking, into data fluency and cross-disciplinary problem solving. And this means that the culture of the maintenance technician is actually going to move from firefighting to foresight. And this will amplify their ability to improve the entire function of maintenance and reliability.
That's fascinating. You said something in there, and I was lucky enough to hear this earlier today, but I think it's something important to touch on. You brought up digital twin. Can you talk briefly about what that means in this analogy and explanation that you just gave about what the next 5 to 10 years looks like, and how that digital twin plays a factor within that?
So let's start with what a digital twin is. So a digital twin basically is taking a physical object and recreating it in the virtual world. And then this digital twin acts as a representation of the system to help generate data, help determine decision, and make predictive feedback into different processes. Now, what makes a digital twin different than like a simulation or a model is the virtually recreated object is fed real-time information from the physical object to accurately and precisely imitate its actions and responses. That's what makes something more of a digital twin, is the real life connection to what's happening in a physical world. Now, a lot of people immediately start thinking of like a rotating 3D part on a screen as a digital twin. And that is one type, but it's not the only type. You can have many different forms of digital twins. I even like to call it the 5 Ps that you should be thinking about. You can have your part, you can have your product, you can have your plant, you can have your process, or you can have your person, all be created as digital twins. And I would argue anytime you're implementing any software, you are creating a digital twin. The question is, are you aware of it and are you taking advantage of it? Because if you are able to recreate a virtual representation with real-time information, you created a digital twin. So if you can start to do that, no matter what function, no matter what process, you can start to take advantage of that to have better visibility and insight into what's going on, into your current state, as well as the next layer up, prediction as to what's going to happen, and prescription of what do I do about it to fix it, and then autonomous action to go do something about it. And that would apply to maintenance just as it would to really any other function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of, you brought it up a little bit ago, there's a lot of wrench turning, as you alluded to, in the industry that we focus on here at PERMA. And it's fascinating to think and hear about Industry 4.0 because it's not something that is really talked about in our industry. And so seeing it and hearing about it, it's like, but it's going on in our industry. And so we are out there creating a solution that now has the technology to back it. So that way people can do predictive maintenance. They can utilize it to see when our units are going to be empty or full, they can leverage that technology that we have to see all the data points that are collected within our platform Connect, to then be like, how long are these bearings lasting? Are they lasting longer? How much is the operation up and running versus the downtime? And see that return on investment. But not only that, predict that, okay, if we put one of our units on there, we can expect a 3, 4, 5, 10x lifespan of that given part, because it's getting the optimal grease or efficiency that it needs to be able to stay up and running. And so as we've developed and talked through Industry 4.0, I like to try and look at it from my lens, where it might not be manufacturing, it might not be a pulp and paper facility, but how does that implement in our world? And to see that PERMA is on the forefront of it in our industry and kind of a leading creator in that space is really fascinating. Because back in the day, you had a unit that you stuck on there. Nobody thought that there was going to be technology implemented into that. And so I find it extremely important not only to know and look into Industry 4.0, but why others are, because there are massive corporations out there that are talking about it, that maybe it hasn't trickled down to where I'm seeing it on a ground level for PERMA. But to know that everybody is trying to be more efficient, we can now leverage this thought process on how we can plan and work with a facility, so that way it meets the needs that they're working towards in Industry 4.0 to better understand it and go after it. So, Jeff, I've really appreciated this conversation today. It's extremely valuable. Thank you for your time, and thank you for coming on PERMA Power Talk.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, and catch us again here soon at PERMA Power Talk.